Hey, Barry, suppose they asked you if you can sing a cappella. What do you do?
Well, I'd do it. A cappella, a cappella.
Oh, hello, Roanoke. Welcome to T-Bone's Best of Roanoke show, where we go after the best people, places, and things to do in our fair city. Big thanks to our studio band and my special guest host, Mr. G. Woo! Now, on with the show. From the Roanoke Valley to Knoxville, from Possum Hollow to Bristol, Tennessee, there's a special kind of music our next guest will tell you just can't get from China. He's Tim White, host of the Tim White Bluegrass Show, and so much more. And with me, as always, is my special co-host, that Wabash Cannonball of Wisdom, Mr. G.
Hey, good to be with you, Tim. Nice to meet you.
Oh, it's good. Thanks for the invite.
And welcome back to your old hometown of Roanoke, Virginia, Tim.
Born and raised right here in the Roanoke Valley. Went to Northside High School. Actually went to Virginia Western for just a short time before I moved to Tennessee. So this is home.
And you still have relatives here?
Yes, I do. Not as many as I once did. Many of them passed away. It's kind of sad, but I still have an aunt, Ruby Robertson, lives over on Maple Lawn Avenue. When I come into town, that's where me and my wife Penny stay. So I got her and Brenda Hutchins. She's a cousin. Michael Lee, a cousin, and my daughter lives here. Megan White works at the VA hospital, and I've got a little grandson, her son, Drew, that goes to William Byrd Junior High School. So we still got some connections to Roanoke, but I used to have, it seemed like, dozens of relatives. Now they've been thinned out, and sorry to say.
Well, you left in 1974?
Yeah, well, actually, late 74. I graduated that year in June, and then by October I was living down in Blumpville, Tennessee, just south of Bristol. I can hear the races going on from my porch when they race at Bristol Motor Speedway. I can hear the cars racing from my porch. So actually right there in Bristol, but a little town called Blumpville. We call it Blunt Vegas. We've got 3 traffic lights and a food city.
A food city.
Yeah. We're going to get a 4th traffic light as soon as they finish picking out the colors.
That's just progress, isn't
yes,
it?
It is.
You can't stop progress. And then from there, I know I saw on your website that you did some sign painting.
I've been a sign painter for my whole adult life. I always liked to draw and paint when I was a child. I went to a little school, elementary school called Southview. They tore it down just a few years ago over on Peters Creek Road, but when I was in the Southview school, I started drawing. I loved the art classes and ended up going to Northsides before they had the middle school. But I went straight from Southview School to Northside and just drew, kind of became, that was my reputation. I was the artist in school. And then once I moved down to Tennessee, I opened a sign shop, and it supported my music habit over the years.
And your music habit is, I would say, the guitar and banjo. Is that fair?
Yeah, and then, of course, I'm in, like you said in the introduction, I'm in broadcasting, radio, and television. I think the biggest thing I've ever done in that regard is Song of the Mountains, which is still going on from the beautiful Lincoln Theater in Marion, Virginia. We tape once a month, but it airs on PBS all across America every week. Right here in the Roanoke Valley, it airs Saturday nights at 8 o'clock on Blue Ridge PBS. So tune it in, Song of the Mountains, bluegrass, old-time, Americana, gospel, classic country. It covers the whole gambit, just like your station here does.
And you've been on Song of the Mountains how long, Tim?
We're in our 14th season. Come the end of this year, we will wrap up season 14.
And if I remember right, kind of the motto is music, magic, and comedy.
Well, that's for the VW Boys.
VW Boys. Now,
yeah.
do they ever, that's a group you're with, are they ever on that show?
Yes, actually, I'm not sure when you're going to air this, but we're going to actually be October 6th. Of this year, we're going to be taping a show. They're going to be doing Mayberry Comes to Marion, Virginia, and we're going to have on Song of the Mountains that night, October 6th, we're going to have the only remaining Darling boy from the Andy Griffith Show. Rodney Dillard's going to be on the show with the Dillards. David Browning's going to be there doing his wonderful imitation of the Mayberry Deputy. Maggie Peterson, who played the original Charlene Darling, is going to be on the show.
Charlene Darling.
And the VW Boys. We're going to be there with our music, magic, and comedy.
Very nice.
But we've probably appeared on it 5 or 6 times over the years.
Okay. And then how did you get started with Song of the Mountains? Did somebody come to you, or they saw you playing somewhere, or how did that leap start?
Well,
That's big.
I'll make a very long story short. For years and years, I promoted bluegrass shows. I stuck my neck out there, used my own money. I worked with people like Bill Monroe and Ralph Stanley, Mac Wiseman, Jim and Jesse, a lot of the Opry stars, and I would bring shows to Bristol and throughout the area. Sometimes I'd lose money, sometimes I'd break even, sometimes I'd make maybe $100. Didn't ever do really good with it, but I learned the ropes and hosted a couple of bluegrass festivals over the years, put them on. And one day they restored the Lincoln Theater in Marion, Virginia. It had a 50-foot hole in the roof.
Hey.
It was raining, snowing, possums, and skunks, and everything was living in there. And they were going to tear it down, and the community got together and saved it, which changed my life. They saved that theater from the wrecking ball.
Right.
And it is absolutely wonderful. One of 3 remaining Mayan-style theaters left in the United States. And they opened it up, and the powers to be, one of the main players, Joe Ellis, and Sam Russell, said, you know, who can we get? We want to put on this show that features Americana and bluegrass and old-time music from this region. And they started batting names around, and they told me my name, Tim White, kept coming up. So they called me one day and said, would you come to a meeting? We've got this idea to do a TV show. Like I said, I'm making a long story very short here. And I went and met with them, and I said, yeah, I can do that. So the first year I did it as a volunteer.
All right.
And I found out that was not a volunteer job. So second year, they knew it. They said, we're going to come up with a budget that we can pay you. Would you take the job and run with this ball? So I did. It's been a labor. God's been really good to me. It's been a very, like I said, it's changed my life. I get to get up every day and do what I love to do, which gets back to, it's the music.
It's the music.
It's the music, and it's what I have a passion for. It's what I love to do. And I get to host a show, meet wonderful people, and work with a great, great crew.
One of the quotes that jumped off the screen that caught my eye was that music and laughter are the best medicine for mankind.
I
said that.
firmly believe that, yeah, and not always prescribed by a doctor, even though I don't think any doctor would argue with that. But laughter's really good for you, and of course, we all know how good music can be. It can move you. It works on your emotions. And I think if you fill your life with both of those, you're going to have a quality of life that it's going to be a whole lot better. I remember the late and great Jerry Clower said one time, he said, because we opened for him shortly before he passed away, and he said, you know, there's only one place there's not going to be laughter, and that place is hell. So ha, ha, ha. He said, I fill my life with laughter, and we try to do the same thing.
It's funny you mentioned Jerry Clower. I was going to bring him up.
Really?
I had thought maybe he would have been an influence for you.
Yeah, I grew up, like I said, right here in the Roanoke Valley, and I'd listen to the Grand Ole Opry, and Jerry Clower was always one of my favorites. Minnie Pearl, Rod Brassfield, all those old timers. And more recent years, Mike Snyder, he's still on the Opry. He's about my age. We're about the same age. But I love the comedy that used to be with every band. You know, back in the 40s and 50s, every band had a comedian in it. Speck Rhodes with Porter Wagner and people like that. Oh, yeah. And it's kind of drifted away from that. But we keep it in our band, the VW Boys. And I play with the second band, Troublesome Hollow, and we lace our show with comedy as well. It's good for you.
Now, if you move right across from Marion into Bristol, Tennessee, you've done some work there. You've got a mural. Tell us about that mural you made there.
Yeah, Marion's about 45 miles north of Bristol on Interstate 81, straight shot. But years ago, I moved from Roanoke in 1974. My mother, she passed away 25 years ago now. But she sold Tupperware here in the Roanoke Valley. Her name was Jackie White. Maybe some of you listeners might remember her. But she was really good at selling Tupperware. Well, They had a distributor for Tupperware in Roanoke. They had a distributor for Tupperware in Knoxville, Tennessee, but nothing in between. So that's what took us in 1974. They offered her a big promotion. So her and my dad opened a distributorship for Tupperware in Bristol, which Blunkville, just south of Bristol, and that's what took us down there. And one thing led to the other. I found out about the history of the Bristol sessions of 1927, when Jimmy Rogers, the Carter family, the Stonemans were recorded by Ralph Peer of the Victor Company. He went down there, and I was amazed not much had been done about it. And you know, tourism is a big, big business, especially in the state of Virginia. So I started talking it up and thinking. I started playing the banjo, and I came up with that. Fast forward a few years, I came up with the idea to paint this mural because I was in the sign business.
Right.
And I did a 30 by 100-foot mural depicting those main players in the Bristol sessions of 1927 that occurred right there on State Street. And then fast forward another almost 25, 30 years, I painted another mural recently, about 4 years ago, in downtown Marion, right across the street from the Lincoln Theater where we taped Song of the Mountains. And it's the history of the music of Smith County and Marion, Virginia.
Now, and of course, two things there, Tim. 1927, those sessions, that's kind of regarded as the birthplace of country music.
Yeah, the Big Bang of country. Charles Wolfe
Big
once
Bang.
in one of his books called it the Big Bang of country music. Johnny Cash said the Bristol sessions was the single most important event in the history of country music. And it did. It launched the careers and made household names out of the Carter family, A.P. Sarah and Mother Maybelle, the Stonemans, Hattie and Ernest V. Stoneman, and Jimmy Rogers, the father of country music, who was one of the first ones in the Country Music Hall of Fame. And all of those people that I just mentioned are in the Hall of Fame now, including the man that recorded them, Mr. Ralph Peer. He's in the Hall of Fame as well.
Those recordings, I imagine you could pick those up somewhere.
Oh, yeah. There's the Country Music Hall of Fame, about 2 years after I painted the mural in downtown Bristol, put out a recording of all of those sides. It's called, I think it's called just the birthplace of country music. Anyway, you can Google it, but it's put out by the Country Music Hall of Fame, and it's all those sides recorded by not only the Carter family, the Stonemans and Jimmy Rogers, but there were a lot of people that you wouldn't recognize that were there, that recorded. He recorded 80-some groups and individuals in late July and early August of 1927. Second floor of an old hat warehouse in downtown Bristol on the Tennessee side.
Is that warehouse still there?
No.
No.
I wished it was.
Wish it was, yeah. Now there is, and this was the other thing I wanted to bring up, there is a mountain music museum somewhere down there too, right? Tell us about
There's
that.
two museums, and I guess I'll brag a little bit. I started both of them, or had a big part in starting both of them. One is called the Country Music, Birthplace of Country Music Museum. It's now on the Virginia side. It's a multi-million-dollar museum. It's really a nice museum. I'm so proud of it. I'm not any longer with that group. About 12 years ago, I branched off and started another organization called the Appalachian Cultural Music Association, and we have a mountain music museum which is now located in nearby downtown Kingsport, Tennessee at 316 Broad Street. And just Google Mountain Music Museum or Birthplace of Country Music Museum, two fine museums within 30 minutes of each other.
Let me ask you about your television show. So it's syndicated, and the audience is pretty big, like millions of viewers?
We reach millions of people. We've been told that our annual reach is about 147 million people a year. The theater only seats 500, but and it's good to have those 500 people in Marion. But the big prize is being on public television all across the United States. We're on 190 plus or minus at any given time on about 190 public television outlets across America. And like I said, we've been told our potential reach is about 147 million people a year. An artist can come on Song of the Mountains, play our show one time, and reach more people than they'll ever reach in their entire career playing live shows. So every musician except one, every musician that's been on the show wants to come back and do it again. And that one that said, I'm done, I'm not going to do it anymore, and that was Tom T. Hall.
Tom
T. Hall is a dear friend, and actually I talked to his late wife, Miss Dixie, about 8 years ago now. I said, Miss Dixie, Tom needs to come out of retirement and do my show. And we've recorded it at their studio down in Franklin, Tennessee, and all. She said, I'll talk to him. And thank God for Miss Dixie. She got Tom to come out of retirement and do our show, and that was his last show that he ever did. Was on Song of the Mountains, and it's all recorded on a 4-camera shoot.
Well, there was something I read recently, Tim. It was the Steve Martin Banjo and Bluegrass Excellence Award, and it went to Christy Scott Benson of the Grascals.
Right, I know Christy. Excellent banjo picker and a great human being.
Okay, and the Grascals, are they legit bluegrass?
Oh yeah, they've appeared on our show I think 3 times over the years. Yeah, they're a hard driving, high energy bluegrass band, and you know, it's terrible to say, but I'll just tell you the truth. You know, years ago, back when I was a real young man, people would say, well, these girl banjo pickers, they play like a girl. Christy don't play like a girl. She bears down. She's head and shoulders with any man I've ever heard pick up a banjo. So she's just great, and I'm just so proud of her and happy for her to win this Steve Martin Award.
Yeah, he plays a little banjo himself.
He's a fantastic banjo picker.
Right after you finish up there with Song of the Mountains and you're busy with the museum work, you know, there's still something else you do. You have a radio show out of your house, right?
Yeah, I have a syndicated radio show, The Tim White Bluegrass Show. You can find it at put the D in front of it, thetimwhitebluegrassshow.com. I'm on about 70 radio stations. Many of them stream. I've been doing radio since 1989. I did a local show down in the Tri-Cities around Bristol, Kingsport, Johnson City for many years, but I just don't have the time to do a daily show anymore. So I get my radio fix by doing the syndicated show. I send it out to my affiliates, like I said, about 70 of them, and I still get my radio fix. I get to promote all these things we're talking about here, and play a lot of good music.
Well, there's one little segment I saw on your website, if you want to report a possum sighting.
Oh, yeah.
What's that all about?
That's the Tim White Possum Spotters Club.
Tell us about that.
We need to make you guys honorary members.
Yes, sir. We're ready.
Well, there's about all you get out of it is a membership card.
I see.
But it's suitable for laminating.
Ooh.
So you get that card, you carry it proudly in your wallet, and then we ask you to email or text message or go to our Facebook page, Possum Spotter Club on Facebook, and post something. But it's basically just keeping an eye on our little marsupial friends in North Carolina that are abused. You've probably seen the possum abuse across America. And, you know, the more dead possums you see, the warmer the weather. It's a good forecaster, too. And the fewer dead possums you see, the cooler the weather. So and if you ever get lost in the woods, find a possum, he'll lead you right back out to the highway.
I was not aware of that.
Yes, he will. So it's just a little fun thing to do. And we have the Possum Report on the show every week, and we have a lot of card-carrying members now.
I see, and they affect weather.
They do. Well, they don't affect it, they predict it.
They predict it.
Yeah.
Well, very good. Well, we're going to sign up right after the show.
All right.
Your top 3 bands, bluegrass bands, who would you rate? And then I want to hear your top 3 bluegrass songs.
Oh, gosh.
There's a lot.
I didn't have time to think about this one. You talking about of all time?
Yeah, or just what jumps to your mind?
Love Flat and Scruggs.
Yeah.
Flat and Scruggs is I guess, my favorite. Followed by a close second, Bill Monroe and his Bluegrass Boys. Yeah. Really like Bill Monroe and his Bluegrass Boys. And, you know, it took a while. But as I've gotten older, I really appreciate Reno and Smiley. And I know those are all 3 older bands, the first generation bands, but Reno and Smiley were right here in the Roanoke Valley.
I didn't know that.
They were on the Top of the Morning show with Irvin Sharp.
Sharp.
Yeah, on WDBJ years ago. And I grew up in Roanoke. I lived over on Mercer Avenue, and then later on Clifton Avenue. I remember getting up early. Mama would be fixing breakfast, and there'd be the Top of the Morning show, and it had Reno and Smiley. I'm pretty much a Earl Scruggs type banjo picker, so I really wasn't into the Don Reno style back then, or even my first 20 years of playing the banjo, but the more I listen to those guys, the more I love them. But more current time, I like people like the Del McCurry Band. Of course, I like the Stanley Brothers, Ralph Stanley. I worked a lot with Ralph over the past 20 years of his life, last 20 years of his life. Who else? I like Alison Krauss. Who doesn't like Alison Krauss?
She's coming along.
Yeah, she's fantastic. I like people like Emmylou Harris, Ricky Skaggs.
Oh, yeah.
I know that's more than three, but you've got me on the roll.
It's flowing. When I was looking at the bluegrass songs, the top bluegrass songs of all time, "Rollin' My Sweet Baby's Arms," "Rocky Top," and all kinds of them, "Uncle Pen," that reminded me of an album that it was put out by a guy you wouldn't think of associated with those songs. It was Leon Russell. He did an album called Hank Wilson's Back.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of that?
Oh yeah, I play it on my show pretty regular.
It's a good album.
Leon Russell is one of my favorite singers, and he was so diversified. He could do everything from rock and roll. He did stuff with Joe Cocker, Mad Dogs and Englishmen. I don't know if you've seen that movie. He could do everything with that, and then come back and do stuff with the Dillards, or Hank Wilson's Back. All that's just good bluegrass stuff.
Yeah, it was good.
Great
album.
voice he had too.
Yeah. Well, we're going to ask you to play a little bit for us. Grace us with your talents a little bit.
Live and in color.
Live and in color, up close and personal, unplugged. But are there any little humorous stories you can take us backstage with maybe the VW Boys or with...
Oh, there's a million of them. How long's this show?
It's 1,000,000 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd like to hear a couple.
Oh, gosh. I'll tell you a real current event story. It's not about the VW Boys, it's about Troublesome Hollow.
Troublesome Hollow.
Yeah, we just did, about 2 months ago, taped a full hour of, usually bands that come on the show do a half hour. And when you see it on TV, it's an hour-long show, so you've got a band doing the first half hour and a different band doing the second half hour. So I had my band Troublesome Hollow on a couple of months ago, and I said, we're going to do a full hour. I host the show, been doing it 14 years. I've never done a full hour, so I want to do that. So they said, all right. So Donnie and Gary Ollis, they're the other two that make up the trio. We had a couple of hired sidemen to help us with it, but anyway, they're old country boys, just great guys, but they were born and raised in Hickory Tree, Tennessee, outside of Bristol. Just, like I said, country boys to the nth degree. So they go out and buy them some new clothes, and they're ready for TV. And we go out there and do a full hour. Everybody's pumped up. We did a good job. And Donnie, the older of the two brothers, goes out to the record table, and he's sitting there, and he said these two middle-aged ladies come up with big smiles on their face, and Donnie said, I believe they liked our show. And he stood up, and they said, no, don't stand up. He said, well, what's going on? They said, well, we have laughed through that whole show. And Donnie said, you've laughed? Well, were that funny? And they said, yes, because your fly was open. And he reached down, and it was open still yet. And he zipped his fly, and he did that whole 1 hour episode with his fly open. And we like to be funny, but not that funny. So, fortunately, I told Andre, our director, I said, you got your editing work to do with this show. Donnie did that whole show with his fly open. Of course, we have a still photographer, and he took a bunch of pictures. You can't tell because Donnie's playing the guitar, but that was just Donnie about died. Do a whole 1 hour national television show with your fly open.
Good thing he had on new clothes.
Yeah, it's a good thing. And he's been doing this long enough to know you're supposed to check that fly before you go on stage.
So what are you going to lead us out with, Tim? You bought your guitar?
I brought a guitar. I think y'all said you liked that Guy Clark tune I did. Or
Well, what would you like to sing? We're open to anything.
how about a possum song?
I haven't heard a possum song today.
Well, you're about to.
Yes, we are.
Here's a little song I wrote back in 1991. It's on our new CD, Troublesome Hollow. If you're interested in Troublesome Hollow music, it's troublesomehollow.com. And VW Boys, with the music, magic, and comedy, it's vwboys.com. So, it's a little song I wrote back in 1991, and it's about our beloved marsupial, the possum. My children are hungry, my dog needs a bone. I ain't got a job now, so I'm just driving home. An hour after sundown, and much to my delight, there's 5 pounds of possum in my headlights tonight. There's 5 pounds of possum in my headlights tonight. If I can run him over, everything's gonna be alright. We'll have some possum gravy, oh what a wonderful sight. There's 5 pounds of possum in my headlights tonight. Don't have to kill no chickens, don't have to open no cans. Just a little bit closer and I'll have him in my hands. I think the time has come now to go from dim to bright, 'cause there's 5 pounds of possum in my headlights tonight. There's 5 pounds of possum in my headlight tonight. If I can run him over, everything's gonna be alright. We'll have some possum gravy, oh what a wonderful sight. 'Cause there's 5 pounds of possum in my headlights tonight. Here's the hard part. Ready for it?
Ready.
There's 5 pounds of possum in my headlights tonight. If I can run him over, everything's gonna be alright. We'll have some possum gravy, oh what a wonderful sight. 'Cause there's 5 pounds of possum in my headlights tonight. Yes, there's 5 pounds of possum in my headlights tonight. There it is. Thank you, music lovers.
The moral of that story is eat more possum.
And, most people think they're ugly, but they can't help it.
You're exactly right. And, there's been some conversation, Tim, about, who's from Roanoke that we could make a statue of that represents us musically. And Wayne Newton comes up. But
Yeah.
would you be open if we put your name up for consideration, a statue of Tim White?
I would be proud, but I think there's a lot of other people that are more deserving.
Well, we could put you surrounded by possums, and there's a lot of ideas we can work with.
I have fun with my music, and like I said earlier, God's been good to me. I thank Him every day.
Yes, sir. And I know what I'm going to be doing Saturday night. I'm going to be watching you on Song of the Mountains.
Tune it in, 8 o'clock on Blue Ridge PBS.
Tim, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
It's been a lot of fun.
Great to meet both of you. I'll get a pole, honey. You get a line and I'll get a pole, babe. You get a line and I'll get a pole. We'll go down to the crawdad hole, honey, baby mine. Yonder comes a man with a sack on his back, honey. Yonder comes a man with a sack on his back, babe. Yonder comes a man with a sack on his back. Got more crawdads than he can pack, honey, baby mine. You get a line and I'll get a pole, honey. You get a line and I'll get a pole, babe. You get a line and I'll get a pole. And we'll go down to the crawdad hole, honey, baby mine. Sal with a snicker and a grin, honey. Here comes Sal with a snicker and a grin, babe. Here comes Sal with a snicker and a grin. Got crawdad juice all over her chin, honey, baby mine. You get a line and I'll get a pole, honey.